A typical warm-up. Okay, let's warm up the muscles. He would say, that's idiotic. Like you're pretending you're a head without a body. The spine's not designed to move like that. The diaphragm is one of those muscles that now has way less work to do, which means it's going to do its breathing work better. Feldenkrais said, listen, if I'm a good teacher, my students will eclipse me. My students will be better than me. And you see now people are developing variations on Feldenkrais, which are enriching the whole discussion.
Would you say that Feldenkrais as well uses the spine or think of the spine as the basics of the body and the basic alignment or basis of the body, or not really? Good morning and welcome to Cupola. This is a very special day because we have a very special interview. And this is the first time we run an interview in English with our Canadian guest, Alan Fraser. And it is very special because, as you know, we have some encounters here that are related to art and development. And I'm not an expert in art, I'm more an expert in development. So I'm here to interview Alan because he is a renowned pianist that became a renowned Feldenkrais practitioner. So that's quite an amazing thing, you know, to be good at two things in one single life is always very difficult. So what happens that a guy can become good at two things in a lifetime is something we're going to find out today. So welcome to Cupola, welcome to our podcast. And I'm going to first ask Alan, how is it that you can become good at two things in life?
Well, for me, it was a necessity. Because I grew up playing the piano, I had piano lessons, I went to university, developed it, and I always felt that there's something lacking in the way I'm being taught. Although I had good teachers, there's something, the old guys played way better than we play today in general. And then I discovered Feldenkrais Method, which is an approach to human movement, which goes back to the way the brain manages movement. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to discover what's missing in piano technique and the way it's taught, my best chance is if I go this other route and bring the wisdom of Feldenkrais in terms of human movement to the hand. And so it really ties totally into your first theme, which is development. Because when I decided to do a Feldenkrais train, it was with the express goal of developing a new approach to piano technique. So that was, and I had no idea how that would look. I mean, if I knew, then it would have already happened, right? So you throw your commitment into this completely unknown domain.
Right.
And so it's been 40 years of
40 years.
Yeah, really research and development, and trying this and it's not working, and trying that and it's working, and having students who were really open to this search that we engaged upon together. So many students who've gone on to become really top flight concert pianists.
Good.
And also working with people who are not musicians at all, cerebral palsy children.
Right.
And people with back pain, and actors, dancers, all sorts of people. But it's all feeding this basic research domain, which I now call Piano Somatics.
Right.
The art of conscious movement at the piano.
Right.
And so that developed, that grew into a thing because of this, my dovetailing these two domains, piano playing and the Feldenkrais method. So a lot of people were very skeptical. I mean, I was very skeptical at the beginning, like, how the hell am I going to do this? But slowly, because I had good teachers and good pianists to work with, it developed into this thing which really helps pianists in a new way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about who was Feldenkrais?
Yeah.
Because, most people don't know him as someone representative.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting guy. I'll take my book and I'll show the picture. Where is he? I don't know my own book.
Guess.
At the beginning, probably, yeah. Yeah, there he is. It's Moshe. So Moshe Feldenkrais, he was born in the Ukraine in a little place called I was going to say Berdichev, but no, that's Horowitz. He was born in Slavuta. A Jewish family. His great-great-grandfather was Rabbi Pinchas Shapiro, who was basically the St. Paul of the Hasidim. And his family ran a printing house that printed all the Talmud and all these commentaries on. So he grew up in a religious family. He emigrated to Palestine when he was 14 and ended up going on to the Sorbonne, where he did degrees in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and physics, and ended up working in the Joliot-Curie laboratories, developing the world's first atom smashers, particle accelerators.
Wow.
And he met Jigaro Kano in Paris, who was the founder of judo, and he had been teaching jiu-jitsu in Israel, so one of his moves so impressed Jigaro Kano that he ended up being the founder of the Judo Club of France and teaching judo in France. So there's all these scientific background is like bar none. He read everything in anatomy and neurophysiology as well as physics and engineering. And he had this use of the body in judo, where it's not the strongest man win, it's the man with the best leverage wins. So it's already about skeletal alignments working for efficient movement. And he noticed that when those movements are really good, that the health of the whole individual is, all the organs function well, everything functions well. And then he injured his knee he slipped on the deck of a British submarine and in the Second World War, and it started him thinking, my God, I'm not going to operate. They give me a 50% chance of survival, and no, I'm going to do micro movements and investigate what I know about how the brain manages movement to improve my knees myself. And that was the start of his method. So it's really, it's called Awareness Through Movement, or the group lessons. And there you lie on the floor and you do these ridiculously small movements. And they seem like nothing. Like, why would I sit and roll my arm like that? But the smallness and the lack of effort gives the brain a chance to sense what's going on in this joint, what's going on in that joint. And when the sensation improves, the muscles, they kind of let go. They, oh gee, I was working too hard. But it's the motor cortex doing it, not your thinking brain. That's the whole thing. It's a part of your brain which we never even, I'm gonna go for this glass. Did I think, now I'm gonna flex my triceps, I'm gonna let go of the biceps a little bit, the long flexors are gonna do this and that. No, I don't think any of that. If I would go crazy. Driving a car like that, you would crash the car in 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But the motor cortex is making hundreds of decisions like that every second of our lives. It's an amazing part of the brain.
So if I understood correctly,
Yeah.
Feldenkrais is just taking a basic movement and then trying to slowly and in a micro movement, trying to understand and make yourself aware
That's
of the
right.
things you're doing.
You break it down into its constituent parts. You go slower and smaller and gentler, and then the sensations enrich. And then the brain, the motor cortex, starts making all sorts of new decisions.
Right.
When the motor cortex feels, oh, I am a skeleton. Why, the skeleton's not designed to be like this. The skeleton's designed to be like that. But people walk around for years, they're like this. Or figure skaters, they walk around for years like this, which is just too much tension in the back. Not the design of the skeleton. Enriched sensation will improve it in a completely different way from exercise and muscle strengthening or muscle stretching or massage.
Right.
It's a new domain of learning.
Because you can strengthen, obviously nowadays everybody is talking about going to the gym and strengthening your muscles and even stretching, yoga or Pilates or
of course,
all those
it's all there.
disciplines, it's all there.
Yeah.
So what's the difference, the approach, the different approach that Feldenkrais is just giving us to this type of...
Feldenkrais, well look, Feldenkrais, from one point of view, Feldenkrais would look at all that and say, it's stupid. because he understands human coordination. But from the other side, he was a very strong guy. When he was young, he could do the flag. He could hold himself horizontally on it.
Wow.
So he was strong. So he knew a lot about, he benefited a lot from all those more physical disciplines.
Yeah.
But he would say, for instance, a typical warm-up, okay, let's warm up the muscles. He would say, that's idiotic. Like you're pretending you're a head without a body. The spine's not designed to move like that. If my head goes like this, immediately my center of gravity is displaced. And now all my spine should maybe go this way, so that although my center of gravity is displaced, it remains over the pelvis. So of course, all of a sudden I have a completely different movement it's a And look at this, it's so graceful. And you see and my spine is supple. And you and
so it's not
oh my God, I'm moving like this, and I'm totally clear, I'm totally aware. I'm not displaced in my perceptions and in my ability to move spontaneously in any direction without preparation. So Feldenkrais says we can use ourselves in a way which maintains this state of optimum readiness.
Okay.
So that's what differs. It's a deeper understanding of, a more global understanding of skeletal mechanics.
Right. And when you get more aware through, I guess, not exercising, but going through different lessons in Feldenkrais, when you get more aware of this subtle nuisance and micro movements, what do you get out of that? Is it consciousness about the movement? Is it something that you change, or is it what you mentioned, that the brain starts doing things differently?
There's an increased sense of well-being.
Right.
So the awareness through movement lesson is typically 45 minutes to an hour lying on the floor doing these micro movements, which connect the arm to the shoulder to the leg, whatever. There's hundreds of them, each with a different theme, but they all tend to organized movement lengthens the spine, badly organized movement shortens the spine with tension. Okay. So you do all these things, and then parts of the spine lengthen, with you're moving your arm, but something happens in the spine. You're moving your leg, something happens in the shoulder. At the end, you get up, and it's more like your skeleton stood you up. And there's a sense of well-being. But it comes in different, like some people say, oh, I feel so light, I'm floating. Other people, the same lesson, and they're going, oh my God, I feel so grounded. I feel like I'm heavier. So why is one person light and another heavier after this lesson? Well, the first guy is like this, and at the end of the lesson, they're more like this, so they're floating. Another guy might be totally kind of like dissipated, like, oh, I'm so loose in my movement, but actually coming back to a balanced state of being will have them feel grounded, and actually they're more efficient and more effective in their movement. So that's why you get such a wide response from these lessons, which bring you back to a skeletal sense of self. And there's a profound well-being in it. And Feldenkrais he said, I'm not just about improving physical movement. I'm about improving the deep sense of self and the deep sense of agency. Right. Because when you are a bundle of nervous tension, you do not have agency in your own life. Your devils are running you. And the devils leave.
Right.
And now you feel, oh, I have choice. I will do this, I will not do that. I have agency because I've discovered myself in a way. That was the profounder goal of Feldenkrais' method.
All right. Is it related as well to relaxation? Because, a lot of, I guess, some artists, many artists, are suffering from excessive stress and tensions.
Right. Yeah.
And the fact of interpreting something publicly may, force them to feel more muscular tension and all that. So relaxation and stress is all part of the, to avoid, obviously, tension and stress, excess of tension and stress is part of the task of any artist.
Exactly.
Is that where you...
Watch out for that word. Relaxation is a red herring.
All right.
Okay? Because basically what I see with my pianists and many others is they're caught in this vicious cycle of tension and relaxation, and tension and relaxation. And the teacher's yelling at relax, relax, and they relax, and they lose all their structure. So imagine this skeleton, it's the most sophisticated design you could imagine to maintain a skeleton, a skeletal structure of solid bones balanced in verticality, okay? So now I'm going to relax. The whole thing goes to hell. Like, I have no more do I have my structure, no more do I have my alignments. I'm so relaxed that basically I'm dead.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not about relaxation. It's not about relaxation. So the Feldenkrais approach is to replace this relaxation as a cure for tension, because that's just a vicious fluctuation between two extremes, with activation.
Okay.
Activation. I have to know in which direction to move, what muscles to activate to move in that direction, in order to maintain, they call it the kinematic chain. So that every bone in the body is linked through the other bones, and when the body's moving well, they're all in flux, but they never lose their alignments.
Okay.
And that has almost nothing to do with relaxation. Now, a new student, they get a lesson like this, and they stand up and they're moving better because everything's well aligned and it's loose. And they say, oh, I feel so relaxed. Because to them, okay, they're less tense, so they're so relaxed. But actually, watch it. That word is a distraction. That word can lead you down a wrong path. Because then the next time they try, oh, I'll just relax. But then again, they're out of alignment, so they can't move. To be really relaxed in a potent way, in a powerful way, you're relaxed and you can move, you maintain your alignments.
Okay, we could say then that Feldenkrais would be a discipline that will allow us to align ourselves to find the precise tension that we need to do things?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Would it be a good summary? Okay,
Yeah.
fine. And you're talking about Feldenkrais, but we didn't mention when was he doing all these things? When? Because, this was quite a long ago.
Yeah. Well, Moshe, he was born in 1904, died in 1984. So he was developing his method already during the Second War when he was designing sonar systems for the U.S. the British Admiralty in a little town called Fairlie in Scotland. Then afterwards, for 5 years, he was in London. He met Matthias Alexander, and so their techniques, there's a lot of similarities between their two techniques. Alexander was 1 or 2 generations older. So Alexander had sort of already established himself, and Moshe was the new up-and-comer. He wrote a book called Mob Body and Mature Behavior, which came out in the late 40s. And then he moved back to Israel in the 50s to head, I think, Israel's nuclear research program. Wow. And he became friends with Ben-Gurion, and he cured David Ben-Gurion, the Prime Minister of Israel, of his back pain. And there's a famous picture, I think it's in here, of Ben-Gurion standing on his head on the beach, doing a headstand. And then went on from there to train 13 Israelis through the late 60s, early 70s. It's the 13 original who are all, I think, now all deceased. Chava Shelav just left us a few months ago. And then the 2 American trainings, San Francisco, 76 to 79. Another 70 Americans were trained. Most of those guys are now trainers themselves. And Amherst, 1980 to 1983, 220 people, many of whom are now trainers. Okay. And I'm going to see one of them tomorrow, Larry Goldfarb, here in Madrid.
So would you consider that Alexander technique and Feldenkrais are the basis of the 21st century way of looking at the neurological connection with the body, or body-mind?
Okay, I would say that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but they are up there in the group of modalities, which is really taking a serious look at understanding all this in a new way, bringing the knowledge we now have to bear on what we do. Okay. So it's a kind of body mindfulness. Okay. Which is very effective. There are people practicing now biotensegrity, which is a new way of looking at anatomy, which also brings you to that state. There's something called neuroathletics now.
Neuroathletics. Somebody
got the idea, and now they're applying it to athletes very, very effectively. It's basically another version of Feldenkrais. There are new things coming online as we speak. More and more people are sort of getting on the bandwagon. And Feldenkrais said, listen, if I'm a good teacher, my students will eclipse me. My students will be better than me. And you see now people are developing variations on Feldenkrais which are enriching the whole discussion. It's a very rich discussion, and it's a very new discussion, so there's lots of potential there. I myself developed Piano Somatics, which is the application specifically to piano technique of all the Feldenkrais principles.
Obviously, you're a pianist, so
that's right. Yeah,
that's something that obviously you see the application of that straight away.
I was an idiot. Like my last 2 years of my training were in Maui, in Hawaii, right?
Yes.
And I rented a cabin, and I brought in a little upright piano, and every day after class, I would go home and, okay, let's see how this works with piano technique. And we were 10 miles from Hukipa Park. I could have been surfing. Like, what an idiot. Like,
and you were close in a cabin there just playing piano.
I could do the piano stuff later. I should have gone surfing and then, but anyway, I didn't. That's how obsessed I was with it. Like, how is this going to work with piano technique? And basically what I came up with was that the hand is a mini body. That's the start of my whole thing.
Oh, interesting.
So the hand, there's got an ankle and a knee and a hip joint and a pelvis. And the wrist is L5S1, the bottom of the spine.
Okay.
And then the spine. And even the elbow functions like a head.
Right.
So you see, for instance, all these pianists, they do all these movements like this.
Okay.
And who walks down the street like this? Nobody, right? So, and Leschetizky, they knew this before. Leschetizky, one of the great piano teachers from 100 years ago, he never touched his pupils, but he had a big stick, and he would push, with his stick, he would push the elbow like that,
right, so
which stopped them from doing this, and, be balanced, be balanced, be balanced. Oh, I need to relax. No, you're pulling your hands out of alignment. You're pulling your hip joint down.
Right.
So be balanced, be balanced, be balanced. No, you don't need to relax because you already were, because you're in balance. Okay. So that's a very simple little, in a nutshell, how Piano Somatics, how the Feldenkrais method applied to piano, transforms the whole thing. Okay. But then you look at the old guys, that's what they were doing. You read about Chopin, that's what he was doing. But we got these ideas about piano pedagogy that just made a lot of problems.
So you mentioned before, it's interesting too, that we now, 21st century, we are supposed to be advanced in piano lessons and piano technique.
That's right.
And you were mentioning that before they were doing it much better.
Yeah, of course.
How can that happen? They didn't have this knowledge, but they did it right.
They didn't have a Feldenkrais perspective, but there was something good about the way Chopin played the piano, about the way Liszt played piano. They instinctively, and Chopin developed many new things. I mean, his use of the thumb in those etudes and it's revolutionary. I mean, the music is revolutionary, but the actual movements of the hand on key that you need to play it were also revolutionary. That was just like an amazingly insightful genius who did it when he was a kid. I mean, he wrote those Opus 10 etudes when he was 18. I mean, it's unbelievable. So this is just a wonderful a gift from God, this phenomenon of somebody who innovates so much. And then his pupils, many of them played like that too. Many of Liszt's pupils played like that too. And then this idea of arm weight came in, which, because the piano action is heavier than the harpsichord action, so you need the weight of the arm to help. That ruined everything. That just created huge amounts of problems. Not at the beginning when they just let their arm relax and then played, but later on when they started over-relaxing and actually using a weighted touch to move the key. It's a disaster. It collapses your hand. It creates all sorts of tensions.
So it's like, it just collapsed this.
That's right. Yeah, what's functional about that? That would be like me.
Help me out.
Now I'm going to use the weight of my body to help me walk down the street. Okay, now feel my weight. Feel my weight.
Right.
And now I'm walking down the street. Like, they're going to put me in the hospital if I keep doing that. It's like
okay, so
it's from a body mechanics point of view, it's ludicrous. But you'll see
Right.
people to this day teaching that like obsessively, like more weight. That's the answer to everything. So you see, somewhere the tradition got skewed. The tradition went off track, and then it stayed off track for generations. And I instinctively saw that as a kid. I mean, my sister brought me to oh, why don't you take lessons from this lady here? She's really good. I went in, I just watched her play, and she's doing this weighted stuff, and something in me just said, no way, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. I was a kid, I didn't know, but something in me felt, no, this is not right. There's got to be another way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the way is to be aware through Feldenkrais.
Yes.
And apply that to your discipline, because it
Yeah.
could be obviously a piano, it could be any other instrument.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm working with violinists, with singers. Singers generally, most violinists and string players and singers, they're a little too hyperextended in their lower spine.
Right.
But if you tell them just slump, they'll be like this in 5 minutes. But if you go through a sensory process to slowly get more sensation down there, and then oh my God, and it lets go of its own accord. It's less a relaxation than a recalibration. All of a sudden, I can generally in one lesson I can increase a singer's volume by 30%. Like just
Volume.
volume.
All
Yeah,
the projection of the voice.
The actual bigness of the voice.
Right.
It just gets bigger, and it gets improved sonority. Yeah.
Right. And that's because of this fine tuning in the tension.
Right. That's right.
Of the muscles.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen, the diaphragm, which singers are very aware of, the diaphragm inserts into the lumbar spine. It also inserts into the cervical spine.
Wow.
The diaphragm is a huge muscle, and it's in. So if you're working hard to hold yourself up because the spine is not well balanced, the diaphragm is one of those muscles. So okay, realign the spine. Realign the spine. Realign the spine. Realign the spine. The diaphragm is one of those muscles that now has way less work to do, which means it's going to do its breathing work better. And that's what gives my God, I've had singers get up from a lesson and start to sing again, and their faces are like, they're singing and they're going, like they can't believe they're doing it. That's me. Okay. That's my voice. It's like stunning to them, all from this realignment of the spine.
If I remember correctly,
it's miraculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like to brag, but Moshe, he would say, sometimes I feel like God in that Sistine Chapel, the creation of Adam. But he wasn't bragging. He was like, he would do this work, and then he would be amazed. So, because we try to realign this, but the human organism is so full of such potential that you realign it, and then this ability comes out, which is really like miraculous. But it's not bragging. It's just like, wow, this is a really cool method, and that's why we're fascinated with it, and that's why we continue to explore and learn and develop. And there's always more to learn about how to bring this sense of a basic organization to a client, to whoever you're working with. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Alexander technique was born through as well, not singing but acting. He was having a problem with his voice as well.
That's right. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because obviously, we're talking about Feldenkrais, but
so,
they were both related. They were creating.
For me, in a way, Feldenkrais Method is Alexander technique version 2. Like
right.
it's the
So next generation.
Matthias Alexander, he was actually an elocutionist, which is a kind of an actor. He would give speeches, and he lost his voice. So then, what the hell am I going to do? So he sat in front of a mirror, and he noticed that every time he went to speak, he would go like this. He would shorten his neck.
Chin up.
Yeah, just shorten the neck. And so, okay.
Shortening the neck in the back.
Yeah, that's right. So now I'm going to lengthen the neck. And he got his voice back. And that was the beginning. He developed his whole technique from that. So, but he was not a scientist. He was an actor, but he just brilliant, intuitive. Okay, look, if this adjustment of my spine helped get my voice back, and again, it's because these muscles are now blocking the voice, and now the spine is balanced on its own. These muscles are free. Then what else? How else could I improve movement in general by realigning the spine? Yeah. So, absolutely brilliant, and Moshe said as much. But Moshe was a scientist. He would years and years of neurophysiology, anatomy, physics, cybernetics. Like, he saw what Alexander was doing, but he saw the neurological changes that were going on in the body that happened when Alexander did his technique. And he said, wow, this is genius, but we could do it better. Look what we could do. And he developed awareness through movement. He developed functional integration as a way of building on that genius of Alexander, which was somewhat intuitive.
Okay.
It's kind of like Freud and Jung.
Okay.
Freud was a
point,
pioneer, but deeply screwed up, and Jung sort of took it to a wonderful place. Yeah.
Okay. Organize that a little bit. Differently.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say, for what you're saying, I'm just thinking, okay, fine. I'm thinking of physiotherapy, I'm thinking chiropractical.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking of osteopathy.
Yeah.
And those disciplines talk a lot about the spine, talk a lot about the column of the body.
They do.
Would you say that Feldenkrais as well uses the spine or think of the spine as the basics of the body and the basic alignment or basis of the body, or not really?
Yes, but like he's more systematic or functional. Like a good osteopath works very much like a Feldenkrais practitioner. A good physiotherapist, many physiotherapists do the Feldenkrais training to improve their skills. Chiropractors as well. So I think Feldenkrais brought this idea of function. That the spine has to move well. It can't be too tight. It can't be too loose. But he brought this idea of functionality, how movement in one part affects the whole, and how the whole is actually involved in every movement. So they work a little bit locally. They achieve wonderful results, but this mapping on to the wonderful results of these other disciplines, this idea of functionality and how each part is related to the whole. I think that's where Feldenkrais's magic largely happens.
All right. Yeah. And do you think that's related to the baby movements?
Of course.
Right.
Feldenkrais's wife was a pediatrician.
Okay.
So Moshe spent years watching babies. And the first year of the Amherst training, the last training he gave in America, was totally based on reproducing each developmental moment in a baby's life. So our first lesson was sucking on the tip.
Sucking.
Yeah. And the second lesson was raising the head, the beginnings of extension. The third lesson was the beginnings of rotation. You look up and look, and I watched my daughter do this. She was like 2 months old or 3 months old, or 2 months, I guess. And she looked up, but then the thing she wanted to see was over there, and then she rolled over onto her back. It was magic. She just did Feldenkrais. It was, and it was totally spontaneous, and she didn't do it again for another 2 months. Wow. But that one moment of like, whoa, skeletal mechanics. And the babies, of course, they're intentional. So when a baby wants to do something and it's chaotic. When they succeed, that one gets soft wired into the brain. All these ones get forgotten, but that one gets remembered, and then if it's repeated successfully often enough, then finally it's hardwired in, and now it's a habit. So the whole of Feldenkrais's first year is like, let's go back, let's do it again, but let's improve the sensation. Let's give the brain a chance to clean up all the parasitic contractions which have become associated with this movement over the years, because we develop bad habits. So is it brainwashing? Well, we don't like the word brainwashing, right? But in a way it is, because it's allowing the neuromotor cortex to do a self-cleaning, a self-improvement process.
So if I understood correctly, would you summarize Feldenkrais technique as a way back to naturality?
I would absolutely summarize it like that.
Okay, so coming back to be a child.
That's right.
Natural child that learns things in a natural way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll give a functional integration lesson. That's the private version of Feldenkrais, where the person lies on a table, and then I'll gently explore, but so gently that the muscles forget to resist, and then the skeletal mechanics gets clearer. And if you do enough of those interventions softly enough, then at the end, it's like the person's muscles all like dissolved, and You almost feel like you're a gelatinous sack of bones just lying on the table. It's a wonderful. So what's happened in that? So in the neuromotor cortex, there are patterns of excitation and inhibition. So if one neuron is firing, the next neuron has to inhibit its firing in order to create the balance. So in this state, when you feel like you're just a bowl of soup with some bones in it, the patterns of excitation and inhibition have evened out. They're not so extreme there, almost. So you are a neurological tabula rasa. But that's what you were when you were a baby. So it really does neurologically brings you back to a state where learning is most possible in you. And Feldenkrais said, I do not teach, I create the conditions for learning. So when you're a neurological tabula rasa, you can redo, oh, I reached for the glass. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, my whole body reached for the glass. Oh, that was so nice. And but my whole skeleton is drinking the coffee. Yeah, and it tastes better.
Okay. So he considers the body as a whole.
Yes.
Right.
A very complex functional whole.
Right.
Yeah.
And a very, very
Not
difficult.
an undifferentiated block whole. Extremely differentiated, everything working together whole.
Right. And we inject there some awareness.
Yeah.
By doing these micro movements. And
That's right.
everything.
The more micro movements you do, the more awareness you bring to the game, and the better the thing works.
Right. Because
Learning how to
you
learn.
can't be aware of all the movements that you do. It's absolutely impossible.
No. The lesson stimulates, like hypersensitizes the sensory nervous system, but you don't stay like that forever, because you can't, but it's food for the motor cortex. And then the motor cortex takes all that and it digests it all and it reorganizes everything based on that. And the motor cortex is a genius. Like the motor cortex is really a genius. So Feldenkrais method is largely learning how to work with the genius of the motor cortex.
Is there a correct or incorrect? Because is Feldenkrais tell me what's correct, or there are many correct things?
He says I do not correct. I do not correct. What we do, we offer sensation to the motor cortex so that the motor cortex can self-correct.
Okay.
Yes, and that's a different
Create
process.
conditions to heal.
So it
Create
improves.
conditions.
It improves, but when you define something as incorrect, you lock yourself into it. And when you don't define it as incorrect, you define it as one option which is maybe not the optimal option for me at this moment in time. How could we improve it? So when you define it as incorrect, there's no room for improvement. When you define it as, well, could it be improved? There's a door open. You could create variations and slowly. And Feldenkrais, very interesting, he said the brain needs to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. So for instance,
to test.
Yeah. In order to know what's right, what's correct, so shall we use the word, even though we're not supposed to, in order to know what's the best way, you need to have inferior options to compare. And so I've had a student in the old days of, okay, the student da 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 da. Good, you played it right. Do it again. And she goes da 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 da. What? In the old days, I would tear my hair out. That's, you see, that's why I have no hair, right? But after this learning, oh, the brain needs the mistakes, I would go, good for you, dear. You made a mistake, and now you know which one's right and which one's wrong. And the student's looking at me like, what the hell? He likes mistakes? What sort of a teacher is this? It's like,
if you always do it right.
Yeah, but nobody ever does it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We learn by mistakes.
That's right. Yeah. But this is neurologically, the neurological processes that actually inform which one's the best one and which ones are inferior. So you again, by improved sensation, you figure out the best way.
And during these 40 years, how many people have you taught about this? How many people, roughly?
Well, there's 8 billion people on the planet, right? And I think I can't have taught more than half of them.
Okay, fantastic.
No, I don't know how many people I've taught. I teach hundreds of students every year, and been doing it for 40 years, so that's 40,000.
And you've been doing your work?
4,000, not 40,000. Bad mathematician. Okay.
So you've been everywhere, because you were born in Canada, but you moved to Serbia. You live in Belgrade now.
Never Africa, never South America, never Australia.
Okay, so
But the other
still.
3 continents, yes.
Right. Okay. Fantastic.
But never Japan.
Never Japan, but you were in China.
Yeah, my daughter was born in China, yeah.
Wow. Can you tell us
And
about
that was a great
that
year, because I
experience?
was a guest professor at Wuhan Conservatory, and I had this great class. And so I'm telling them all about the arches of the hand. The hand is a mini body. Don't fall down, stand up. And the fingers make tones, and arms join the tones. So don't do the weighted thing stops the arm from linking notes, and just these simple processes and everything. It was very interesting. People would come to me with shoulder problems. Okay. And I would say, look, just get your hand going good and get your arm going. Their shoulder would totally resolve without ever having looked at it.
This part of the whole thing?
Yeah, because once the shoulder was tensing up because the hand was like a mess, and now the shoulder's trying to help out. The hand gets good, the shoulder goes, oh, thank you.
If I got tension in the fingers, I've got tension in the back, maybe.
After that year, which was like my golden year in many ways as a pedagogue, it was at that point that I thought, maybe I have something which could be called a method.
Okay.
And I wrote a book based on that year's teaching, The Craft of Piano Playing, my first book. And then I had to organize all those lessons into a system. Where do you start in terms of technique, legato, and develop the different aspects of it? So that was really a seminal year for me, and where it gave me encouragement. Like I thought, oh my God, these guys, everybody got better.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah, even I had a couple of sort of mediocre students. They also got really good. There was only one who didn't get good, because his other teacher hated what I was doing because it was a threat to her existence, and she would undo everything that I told him to do every week. Poor guy, Tao Chi.
Right. Okay.
He was a lovely boy, but he would come back next week not doing everything I told him. And he was intelligent. So I found out at the end through the grapevine that his teacher was like, anyway, politics, you can't get away from politics.
Okay. In your experience with, with musicians, but pianists mostly, what do you think is the worst or the most common mistake that they make regarding all this conversation, the things they do using their bodies to play piano, to play an instrument?
Yeah, I would say they try too hard. They invest too much in trying. And the minute you're trying, already you're too tense. Okay. You have to, calm down. Just sit back in your chair. Let your spine breathe. This is, for me, a spinal breathing. The lungs breathe in and out like that, but the spine breathes in, going into extension, and the spine breathes out, going into flexion, which is not really flexing, it's just extending less, okay? So look, if you're probably trying too hard, you're probably extending too much. You're doing a spinal in-breath, and then you're not allowing yourself the spinal out-breath now. So just let your spine breathe out, okay? And now you may feel like, okay, now I'm more relaxed, but I can't do anything. I'm stuck. Yeah, but look, just stay there and balance a little bit in your so-called stuckness, and then you realize you're let go, but you're not stuck. You're not stuck. You can do little tiny, and the tinier the movement of the spine. You've got 2 sits bones. Can you feel? Are you on your left one? Are you on your right one? Are you a little behind your sits bones? Are you a little in front of your sits bones? Can you just stay like that, and then actually stay like that? You're way let go, but somehow you didn't fall over. You're still gloriously erect, gloriously in relationship to gravity. This is fighting against gravity. Like, gravity, you're not going to pull me down. And this is being in harmony with gravity. This is losing to gravity. But somewhere in between, you're not fighting it and you're not losing to it. Yeah, and really, the ground reactive force, which I call the bench reactive force because we're sitting, it's just like, no, it's not, from a physics point of view, it's not true that gravity is pulling you down. What's true is that the ground is pushing you up. So the physicists say, listen, the physicists say that when I'm pushing on this table, the table is pushing back at me. Now look, as a human being, I know that's not true. The table's sitting there like a bump in a log. But from a physics point of view, it's true. The table is exerting a force against me, which stops me, my hand from going further. The table is pushing me, and the ground is pushing us up. It's called the ground reactive force. And in people who study gait, like how people walk and everything, that's one of the fundamental things you have to figure out. So as a pianist or as a violinist or as a singer, if you're standing, it's the same thing. Like just learn to stand in a way where the spine is free to let the ground reactive force move through. The bench reactive force moves me into verticality, floating verticality. And then don't ruin it all by by letting gravity win. Look, when I do this, gravity won. No, the whole point of feeling your weight, if you want to do weight technique, do it, but understand what it is let your arms' weight become harmonized with gravity. How do I do that? By standing.
It's not collapsing.
Standing the hand up. And now the arm's weight is perfectly harmonized with gravity. I can move in any direction without preparation. That's the ideal, the skeletal ideal. That's the functional ideal of Feldenkrais, to be able to move in any direction without preparation. Now you're ready to go. If the muscles are like this, you're not ready to go. If the muscles are like this, you're not ready to go. So finding that balance, as you said before, just the right amount of tension. Feldenkrais actually called it tonus, muscle tonus. Muscle tonus is good holding contractions that facilitate movement. And tension is bad muscle holding contractions, which inhibit movement.
So muscle tonus is like the minimum tension
That's
possible
right.
to do something appropriately?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If we had no muscle tonus, your arm would fall off.
Yeah.
Like the muscle tonus, it holds the bones in the joint, and it actually has to hold the joints kind of snug. And when you find that, you'll find you'll play faster, you'll play with better sound, you'll play with more musicality, you'll play with more colors. And the same for a violinist. Like violinists, they make their shoulder girdle like a frame, like a fixed frame. And so we come along and we start moving both shoulder blades. You do weird things like play the violin without moving your bow, and then they have to do this with their violin. And you try it, and you'll see it opens up the whole thing. And then watch Yitzhak Perlman. He does it both. He does half and half. And then all of a sudden the sound of the violin is better, and these fingers are moving with more ease. Why? Because the holding muscles are not overly intrusive. They're just doing enough, like you said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Breathing. Talk to us about breathing, because you're talking about, hey, stop. Wait a minute. Before you try, breathe.
That's right.
You started with breathing. Is breathing...
Well, I was talking about spinal breathing, but when the spine gets to this point where the diaphragm doesn't have to hold the spine, then you don't have to breathe. Breathing happens. It breathes. Like,
Right.
if you just sit there and really don't breathe and don't try to breathe, you won't die. Eventually, a breath will come. And that's the breath that nourishes your entire being.
Right.
The one that just spontaneously arises, and it happens. So you organize yourself in a way that spontaneous breathing can happen. So you don't have to work at it, and then it informs everything.
Absolutely. If I'm on the piano and you tell me do something or play something for me, that's action.
Yes.
Where should I start if I want to be aware of what I'm doing? If I want to, should I start by breathing, or should I start by just trying to find this fine muscle tuning? Or
Well, let me should I give you an example?
Please.
Yeah. So let's say I want to play this piece, and I sit down at the piano, and so the first thing I would do is feel my two sits bones.
okay,
And then feel, oh, am I behind my sits bones? Am I in front of the sits bones? Where am I? Oh, and then actually just asking that question, I felt something reorganize already. Oh, my body put me really on top, but not in a held way. It just found it, yeah? And then I may come here, let's say I'm going to play this little piece by Scriabin. I might start by just lying my bones down, like feeling, I don't have a hand, I've just got a bunch of bones, and I've got bony contact to the key. And I feel my hand melting into the key, the bones, and I almost feel like I want to do this. But then a natural breath comes. Did you see where that breath came from?
It's like waiting for
I have
it.
skeletal contact here. I have skeletal contact here. The skeleton is completely connected from one end to the other, and then, the breath just comes. That's the breathing I'm looking for. And then when I start to play, I simply, So I'm just trying to maintain a sense of the bones playing these notes, either by standing up or by just brushing a key. Yeah. So you see, by maintaining a skeletal connection to the bench, which informs a spontaneous breathing. If I try to breathe while I'm playing, that screws me up. It's too much. You just have to set yourself up so it breathes. But that natural free breath, it just comes. It just comes. It just comes. And I move. I don't stop moving. Like that. You see, I tried to keep moving, but not moving. No,
Not the act of moving, but
try to keep a skeletal awareness of the bench and of myself being moved by the bench reactive force in a way that frees all this to do whatever it wants. Of course, there's this whole sense of there's these things here, and then there's this. The shoulder is kind of like a conduit. The shoulder has to be very important, this idea of not tension, but yes, tonus. And that feeling of like not tension, but yes, tonus. It's, again, the shoulders start having a feeling of agency, that's the periphery connected to the core. So everybody's talking about strengthening the core. I'm talking about let's get that core more intelligent. Let's get that core more responsive. Let's get that core more able to sense a connection all the way through to the fingertip, from the periphery into the core and back out again, through the conduit of the shoulder girdle. And that's sort of how that's a little description of, there's many more details. Every new musical situation requires a new version of that. But that's the kind of a little nice description, a précis of what we're doing in Piano Somatics, applying Feldenkrais to the piano. So did that answer your question about breathing?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think the whole question of breathing is really seminal. It's like very, as you said, it's like...
It's part of a whole.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And tell us about yourself. Why Belgrade?
Why Belgrade? I grew up in Montreal, and talk about synchronicity. So I committed to make a Feldenkrais training with the goal of creating a new approach to piano technique in January 1988. June 1988, 2 weeks before my training began in Washington, D.C., Kemal Gekic walks out onto the stage in Montreal, and you can actually find that concert on YouTube, Kemal Gekic, Montreal, 1988, and with interviews with me, at the beginning, and that's it. That's what I'm looking for. That's the living example of the kind of piano playing I'm searching for. I've been searching for all my life. I didn't know it existed except for Horowitz, and Horowitz was kind of inaccessible to a boy from Montreal, right? Although one of my teacher's classmates, Ronald Turini, actually did study with Horowitz.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so I met Kemal. He says to me, I told him, listen, nobody teaches like that here. Nobody plays like that here. He says, oh, well, you should study with me, but if you want to, you should come soon. There's going to be a war, and you should get there before the war starts.
Okay.
It's like, what? That's a hell of an invitation. But that's what happened. So I went to Yugoslavia in 1990 to study with Kemal. The war started in 91, and we just holed up in the art academy of the University of Novi Sad, and we played piano, and this country was disintegrating around us, and it lent an urgency and an intensity to the work we were doing at the piano, actually, to do it with this weird political situation going on outside. So that's why I live in Belgrade, but I lived in Novi Sad for 20 years and then moved to Belgrade after that, because I was working at the University of Novi Sad.
Okay. And who's Kemal?
Kemal.
And who's Kemal for you, obviously? And what does he think of all this Feldenkrais thing in your life? And how does he approach that?
The first time I gave him a Feldenkrais lesson, he was swearing his head off at me. What did you do? My fingers are like cooked spaghetti. I can't do anything after, because he tried to play immediately afterwards. He was a bag of bones like this, like we discussed. So, so he was skeptical for a long time, but I think actually he learned a lot from it, because his playing changed dramatically from the time we met to the present day. He always says that he learned more from me than I learned from him, but I think he's saying that more as an insult to my capacity to learning rather than what I taught him, yeah? Anyway, we're best friends. We're very good friends still. He lives in Atlanta, and I still live in former Yugoslavia. But we see each other from time to time. He's now composing his own piano music, and it's amazing. So he's playing that around, and he's one of the top pianists on the planet. He always likes to spend more time in his practice room developing stuff, so he doesn't have as big a career as he deserves, because that's his way. But he plays a lot in Japan. He plays a lot in the States. Not so much in Europe, unfortunately.
No, in Spain, definitely.
Yeah, and so we have to change that somehow.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So
Tell him to come over.
Kemal Gekic, yeah, is really a force to be reckoned with when it comes to piano. I learned a lot from him, even if he says not.
He's always has been one of the top players in the world.
Yeah, absolutely, and very individual, very individual. When he plays now, it's interesting. Last year he played the same program that he played in the first round in Montreal, like the second round, I mean, and it was totally transformed, and it was like, it's not even music anymore. It's this person is totally enchanted with what this composer, look what he did here, and look what the music does. There's this sense of wonder and enchantment and enthrallment and joy and creativity and just plasticity, it's so flexible. It can say so much. And when we talk, he still says, he feels that we've barely scratched the surface in what these great composers put into those pieces, like Beethoven, Chopin, Rachmaninoff. We've barely scratched the surface. He says, now, most interpretations that we hear, they're kind of like, they're very academic, they're very much in the box. And he's going out more and more outside the box.
Absolutely.
Which is a wonderful initiative.
Can always tell.
Development.
Yeah.
Development.
Development,
Yeah.
exactly. Look, just to finalize this interview, is there any questions in the public present today? Do you want to ask? Any curiosities? Something you have in your minds?
Well, tell us a little bit about you've seen Horowitz play 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we talk about many things, of course, but one of my favorite was the comparison that you made between Horowitz's way of moving and movement to Feldenkrais.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, hearing Horowitz live every time it was like a life-changing event for me. It was like this kind of wonder and beauty. Who would think that it exists on the planet? It was far beyond anything imaginable. All the recordings there are. I have to hearing Horowitz live is like seeing the Van Gogh Starry Night, the real one, not this reproduction. And you know how those reproductions are like, it's nothing compared to the original. So all the recordings you have, which are wonderful, hearing him live was 100 times better. It was just, there was so much more. And his posture was so before I ever heard him live, I saw videos of him, and that posture, his way of moving was so individual. And actually, at first, before I ever did Feldenkrais, I did Tai Chi. And I was using Tai Chi, which is also about skeletal alignments, to try and imitate Horowitz, basically. Not imitate him in the worst sense, but to figure out what's he doing and how is he doing it, and can we access the same process? And so the sound was amazing. His physical comportment was drastically different from everybody else, like opposite, basically. And then one time I was in my third year of my Feldenkrais training in Hawaii, and I was showing Jeff Holler, my trainer, this video of Horowitz, and playing in Moscow. And when he was walking on stage, Jeff is calling to Jerry, my other trainer, to whom this book is dedicated. Jerry, look, he walks just like Moshe. And so there's this total similarity about skeletal organization and what Feldenkrais is cultivating and what Horowitz was doing. It was like he already knew. Somehow he knew. And you know how he knew? It's because Feldenkrais was born in Slavuta, which was then Ukraine, and Horowitz was born in Berdichev in Ukraine. Those villages are just a couple of 100 kilometers apart from each other the same year.
The same year?
It's the same year, yeah.
Okay.
So, spooky, spooky.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there any Feldenkrais tip or method for combating me getting nervous in front of an audience? Or
Of course.
Yeah.
Everything we described, it's like you return to the self. The nervousness is an overactivity of the muscles.
what
So-
kind of stuff can I do just before getting in front, I don't know, 200 people and talking or playing or whatever?
Do what I showed you on the bench there. You sit down and you get in touch with your skeleton, let the natural breath come and just stay there and be in that experience for a few minutes.
Has it got anything to do with the vagus nerve?
Yes. Yeah. There's some practitioners who are really big on the vagus nerve and that whole connection. I don't know that much about it, but it's definitely a thing. Absolutely, yeah.
And what should I do just in the very moment I'm getting nervous and I'm conscious about being nervous in front of everyone?
You hear Moshe Feldenkrais, he spoke with this kind of Jewish accent, and imagine him telling you, don't be a dick, don't be nervous. It's the Bob Newhart psychiatrist sketch. Just stop it, don't do, who would do that? It's like ridiculous. No, you have to, it's come back to yourself. If you do a bunch of Feldenkrais awareness or movement lessons, and you'll start to acquaint yourself with this feeling of, I'm coming back to myself. Skeletally, neurologically. Yeah. I'm late for my meeting. I'm screwed. These people are very special people. I cannot keep them waiting. Yeah.
Skeletal Wisdom
Yeah.
is precisely one of the books, obviously, from our friend Alan Fraser. It's been a pleasure having you on board.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to learn from you. I guess a lot of people listening will learn a lot from you. Thank you so much for your work.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
It's been a pleasure, and it'll be only the first pleasure, because maybe we'll have another chance to meet again in the future.
I would
Thank
love
you very
that.
much, Alan.
I would love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, Carlos.
Yeah, great.